Ex-cons of Reddit. Which crimes were respected in prison, which were hated, why? A friend of mine got away with 3 robberies, but what put him in jail was an assault to a police officer, and he said jail was easy. He also pointed out that most of the convicts would do research in the prison libraries if they didn't believe you or wanted to confirm your sentence, and if you came up lying about what you were in for, you were fucked or dead were his words. I asked a friend who has been to jail, since I have no experience. Aside from child molesters who are universally despised, you're not respected for your crime, you're respected for how you conduct yourself. If you stay out of drama and respect others, you'll get the same in return. Just be prepared to stand your ground. Sex crimes are the lowest of the low. Priority given to those who commit them against children. For sex offenders, it's PC or having to live in constant fear of violence. Respected crimes are not centered around one thing. It depends on the person. It's not like with the other way around where everyone hates sex offenders. Even the cops will sometimes tip guys off that they should check somebody's paperwork. Worked in a jail. From my experience being in close quarters with criminals and alleged criminals, the obvious crimes were severely hated, like rape, sexual assault, child porn, beating women or kids. People in cases like this were all put in a separate pod. No crimes were really respected, but one guy I knew for shooting his cheating wife, and the guy she was cheating with was respected for that though. But I believe it was only because of the way he really owned it and joked so often about it. For whatever reason they really liked this guy, and to be honest, even I found it hard to hate him for it. Dude was the nicest guy I ever met. People who have never been down spewing the same old 70-year-old myths and stereotypes they learned by watching TV and movies. There should be a first-hand experience tag to sort through all the echo chamber drivel, like the serious tag helps sort through all the bad puns. Just saying. It gets old seeing the same old reposts and same old replies from people who have no actual experience to base their insights on. Anyway, to answer the question, and yes, I've done time in jail and prison. In prison, it doesn't really matter what you're in for, as long as you don't have kids on your charges and you didn't cooperate with authorities and snitch on others. You'll have your papers checked, so don't lie about your charges and let them know in intake if you are a snitch or chomo, so that you have no chance of being in Gen Pop. You get sent to Gen Pop, and if you refuse to show your papers, emails are sent out by inmates asking for help investigating your case and charges. Most shot callers have phones and can instantly find out themselves what you did without having to rely on coded emails. Back in the day before phone smuggling corrupted a majority of codes, you had to send out phone calls or emails asking your people to check on someone. You gotta show your papers to be able to eat with and associate with your people in prison. Your people typically being those of the same race or gang affiliation. You don't have or won't show your papers, you'll be a lone outcast target of every group looking for someone to exploit or even use as an easy victim that could earn them and their people points if you send them to medical or the morgue. The bottom line is this: you have no friends in prison. If you do, you have no idea how to play the game and survive. Even if you're doing time for killing someone who broke into your home and raped your wife, nobody really cares or discusses the crimes of fellow inmates once you've settled in. You either have kids on your charges or you don't, and if you do, you better make sure you don't end up on a unit with those who don't. I've seen chomas assaulted viciously, and the guards took their sweet time getting there. I've seen co's put chomas in Gen Pop just to see them get fucked up. Perhaps because the chomo was an asshole in intake, or perhaps some co's just want to get as many chomas hurt or killed as they can. But once you're vetted, your experience in prison will be dependent on your communication skills, your patience and tolerance, and knowing how to avoid powder keg situations. I have a friend who constantly is going to jail for really basic things like graffiti, but he always seems to have a pretty okay time. He just doodles with whatever he can find, and when people get curious he draws whatever officers and fellow cellmates ask him to. Lots of people wanting self-portraits. but he always seems to make friends. I haven't ever personally been in jail, but I speak on behalf of my parents who have both been in and out. While no crimes were necessarily respected by all, crimes such as stealing or making counterfeit money were seen by fellow inmates as more impressive, and these people would have an easier time getting along with others. Pedophiles, rapists, child pornography viewers, etc. These people were despised. So much so that they have their own section of the jail dedicated to them. If a pedophile was put in general population with the rest of the inmates, he'd likely have a knife pulled on him or worse. While inmates all commit crimes, most are still able to look down on the despicable types of human beings that prey on children. Here terrorism. The guy who went around town and stabbed few, and one of his fellow Muslims was sadly not beaten to death in prison. He was then moved to some other place there where he is not allowed to see other inmates. In my opinion, a person like that should be put in with the rest and let the prisoners redeem themselves a little from the crimes they have committed. Not an ex-con, but related to several. Here's a list of people that are usually killed on sight. Snitches, rapists, a lot of the time, pedophiles, and murderers of women and children. I'm probably missing a few. Here's a list of criminals that aren't necessarily respected, but preferred by prisoners. Murder of rival gang members, drug traffickers / dealers, and people on drug possession charges. The way they find your charges is that you are put in with paperwork, and this paperwork has a list of what you're in for. Your respective race's gang will have people go and ask to see your papers, and afterwards you'll be judged by them. Some prisons might be different from country to country. Attorney here with several prison guard friends in the Northeast USA. Substantially violent crimes will get you respect, as in people will leave you alone. Smart guy crimes, if you ran a good scam, or were a major drug player, are also respected, as in people may want to be your friend. If you're in for lesser drug or misclassany / gun possession / simple assault type crimes, you're a nobody. Kid dickers are separated out here, because they are absolutely targets, and rapists are often targeted as well. As another commenter mentioned, if you have crimes against women and children, you're gonna have a bad time. The only hated offenders are child molesters, child murderers / abusers, rapists, sex offenders, snitches. It really depends on the state and institution. Like in my state, elderly abusers, abusers of handicapped / mentally retarded, anyone who's deemed as vulnerable and defenseless is also a huge no-no. I've done time in county and state. Sex crimes are the worst crimes you can have. If you have a sex crime, you basically have a green light on you. Even in protective custody, sex offenders and snitches get stabbed and beat up. Also, any crimes involving children are the worst. Child endangerment charges will get you killed. Obviously, sex crimes that involve a child, violence towards a child, will also get you a green light on the yard. The crimes that command the most respect among inmates are bank robbery, murder, racketeering. A lot of hustlers that got caught with weight are also respected. Chomas / child killers are #1 in everyone's list. The guards. The guys. Every single person. Guards react slower to the incident when they know. Aside from specific gang-related praises, like Uranus respecting their fellows for naughty no killings, the only respected crime is when someone handles #1. Even then, I wouldn't consider that truly respected. You could still get into shit. The only real respect you get is from the crimes you commit while you're in there. It depends on the race. Whites do not tolerate the abuse of women in any way whatsoever. Blacks do not care about anything and have no rules. Mexicans are similar, but do have some strict rules. For instance, in California where I was, Southsiders had different rules as opposed to Pisces. As for others, I'm not sure on their rules. Now, a big difference between NLR and the Abbeys, that NLR doesn't believe in taking a hit on another white man. AB has no rules. 18 to 80, anyone can get it, son. In Australia, generally speaking, murderers were given respect, though the crime itself might not be respected. Drug crimes were pretty middle of the way. The crime itself was respected, even if the criminal wasn't. If you were a kid to share, you went into protection prison, because if you were in mainstream, people would jump on your head. The Australian term for being a snitch was called being a dog, which would get people jumping on your head just as fast as being a kid to share, which earned the protection prisons the term boneyard, where all the dogs are.